attendees, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will have the reading of the mission statement, please.
Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Thank you. And the reading of the vision statement.
Richmond Community Schools. Richmond Community Schools is a collaborative community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you. Before we have public commentary, I just want to take a moment and welcome our newest board member, Michael Eloriaga. You were sworn in last week, and we are grateful that you applied and are part of our board, and we look forward to your input as we move forward together.
I appreciate it.
So we'll
Thank you.
take that moment and say that. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, public commentary. Cindy, do you have?
We have the Richmond Police Department.
Okay, great. For those who wish to speak, to comment at this evening's board meeting, the maximum time to speak is 5 minutes. Please keep your comments fact-based and within the time permitted. Comments are not to be personally directed or abusive. Comments for recognizing the work of student and staff are always welcome. However, critical remarks concerning specific school personnel or students are to be made through the complaint process available in Policy 9130. School board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, but you will receive a personal follow-up email from myself. Please state your name and address before speaking. Thank you.
At this time, again, as Mrs. Elsmeyer alluded to, we have Chief Weatherly and members of the Richmond Police Department that will be joining us for public commentary. Gentlemen, feel free to join us here at the podium. Welcome.
So I'll do just a brief introduction. I see some familiar faces, but my name is Pat Tudor. I'm a detective with the Richmond Police Department. I'm going on my 27th year at the. Vibrate too. This is not wrong at all. But at the beginning of the year, our agency had a strong vision in engaging the community. So with that vision, we created a division called PACT Division, PACT, Policing Communities Together. I feel very honored to have been selected to be the officer to represent our agency in that capacity. And I feel equally as honored to have somebody that probably works just as hard as I do and is equally passionate about getting out of the community. So we had several events throughout this year that we hosted, and the most recent event that we did was a haunted house that we did at the police department, and we did also one at our training center. The one at the training center, we ended up running from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. and estimated to have about 2,500 people we anticipate that came through. So for us, it was a great outreach in the capacity of just engaging the community. The thing that I felt that had equal value, if not more value, was for our officers to be able to work directly with some of your students. So I know that this event would not have went off because I think we had close to 25 or 30 students from your school that showed up to participate. And to kind of give a little backstory, I wasn't sure how we were going to get volunteers, right? So it's sometimes difficult to get officers on their day off on a Saturday night to say, hey, do you guys want to come in and put on a costume for a haunted house? And many of them were like, they're like, yeah, I don't know if that's me or not. So I reached out to a couple people that I knew. One of them was Neil Van Middlesworth, who coaches the girls soccer team. I said, hey, do you or would you want to reach out to the girls and see if they would have any interest in helping us with our event that night? And he said, absolutely. Not sure what the response was going to be. And then someone put me in contact with Jess, who does the cheerleading, and then also I was contacted by AJ and said, hey, we also have some student council members that are interested in helping as well. So we kind of coordinated everything. I actually was able to go to Kicks 96 one morning with the cheerleaders. We pulled them in and got to do some live broadcasts with them, which I thought was kind of cool for them to be able to get on radio. But on the back end, I think what has the most value for me and for my agency is just building those relationships with these students, with these, I call them kids. And that night of the event, they all showed up at 4 o'clock as we asked them to do. And he can attest, the cheerleaders, kind of the whole theme of this, and I may be giving you only care, I know I've got 5 minutes, but the whole theme was that we were all warned during the solar eclipse to not look up at the sun. And we had people in the community that actually looked at the sun, and then we were noticing that it was creating some zombie type effects by doing so. So we kind of played off that, and we told the cheerleaders this, and they all showed up in some old, maybe not old, but some cheerleading outfits, like, I mean, completely makeuped out. And it was just amazing, right? To see them excited. They were put on to the school bus, which was another great thing. The transient staff reached out to us and said, we'd love to be able to be part of this. So they showed up as well. I mean, they contacted us. So it was awesome to have them do that. They brought a bus. And it was, I don't know if you saw it, completely decorated. I mean, it was cool. It fit the theme. And then we put all those cheerleaders on the bus. And that was the first, I guess, for the people that showed up to walk through, that was their first experience to have to deal with all the, cheerleaders on the bus. And then we kind of had the soccer players scattered out and some of the student council members as well. So we definitely felt that it's important that we, not only as an agency, but for us to be able to give some acknowledgement to the students. We love being engaged in Richmond schools. I'm not a Richmond graduate. I'm a Northeastern graduate, so I have a lot of loyalty to my Northeastern. I coached there for 15 years, but I know that our national night out event, is that a Centerville guy? Former Centerville guy, who was also a Northeastern guy. But my wife's a teacher there as well. My boys graduated there. I coached for years. And I personally find a lot of energy in our youth and love interacting with them and getting them involved in these things we do. So we also had the football team show up at our National Night Out event. And if you saw that or was at that event, we had a huge water slide that ran down the length of Roosevelt Hill. And when the football team showed up, it was shirts off and soap, and he and I were racing them down. And again,
None of them beat us.
none of them beat me. I did get beat. Oh, I'm older. I wasn't quite, but to be able to interact with your students, for us, and I think that's what we as law enforcement have to do a better job of, is building relationships. So our community knows that we do love them, we care about these kids, and we want to build relationships with them. And this event, I'm telling you, could not have been a success without all of these students being there. And I kind of, we gave some fist bump, and I said next year, and some of them are still having the effects of the strobes going off for the 4 hours they were in there screaming, but it was good. So, and I do also have some of the high school's students that are in our cadet program. There is a program that we designed to help give them a pathway to maybe a career in law enforcement. So we've just made some appreciation awards, some plaques and certificates for each one of the groups that showed up to help that day. I know I talked to Neil. He said he was going to try to make it, and maybe some of the students, but I would be happy to lead those with you guys and hang those somewhere proud, because the students definitely earned it and deserved it. I mean, it was a brutal day. I mean, it was from about 4 o'clock till about midnight that they were there. And the girls all the next day were talking like this because they had no voices left from screaming. So
Very impressive with them.
yes.
Yes, they did awesome.
Yeah. And that's something that I would love to continue to do, is to just build those partnerships with our community and our kids as well. So we appreciate it, and we appreciate the time from the bottom of our hearts.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Do we have others signed up for public commentary? One other? Okay, great.
Sorry, T. Washington. I'm a teacher at Hibbert Program Building. I just literally rushed here because I had signs for kids, signs for club. I said, I got to go back to work. So thank you for taking this time to listen to me. I have noticed doing my research that we don't have an AI policy for Richmond Community Schools, so artificial intelligence. And AI is a very popular topic right now in schools, and especially with teachers and students, and plagiarism, and people are writing papers and not claiming, the credit. So a great example of this is in Massachusetts, where a student was caught using AI to write their paper. They got in trouble, but the parents actually are suing the school district. because technically the school district didn't have an AI policy. They have a plagiarism policy, but it's not, they'll consider it to be the same thing. And so I don't want that to happen here for RCS. And I just attended a conference 2 weeks ago, Good Teaching Conference by ISTA, and one of the presenters actually gave me their school district's AI policy. So I will give this to your lovely school attorney.
Thank you.
If I had time, I would have made more copies. But it was, I guess, coincidence that they happen to have their copy of their version of their policy. I think it's a great guidance policy. And I really hope that RCS actually takes the time and put this as priority, because we are facing with students using AI, unfortunately, not in the right way. Yes, as teachers, we use it now for a lot of things like writing emails or newsletters or whatnot, but we really need to teach our students how to use AI properly. And that's not really happening right now. So again, just check your own policies, notice that there's no AI, and I feel as a school district, we should have one.
Do you have programs in place that are diagnostic for the benefit of teachers to look, to sample a writing and give the probability that it is AI generated?
I'm glad you asked that question. We've used various entities, apps like GPT is very popular, but unfortunately those are not 100% reliable because they're still collecting information as part of their database. So that is why we really can't trust it 100% yet. It's a work in progress.
So if a policy is adopted, part of the administrative guidelines should probably address that need for
Correct.
For resources.
Yes, because we use some resources and we discovered that it's not as accurate as we thought it was. And I don't want to accuse a student of plagiarizing when really they're not. And this is my 14th year. I've seen my students writing, so I know when it's their words and when it's not. Okay, but not all teachers have that opportunity. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any others for public commentary? Okay. Next, we'll move on to our action items. Action item 3.01 is an MOU between REA and RCS.
I move that we accept the MOU between REA and RCS.
Second.
We have a motion by member Stoltz, a second by member Stevens. Are there questions or comments regarding this?
I want to explain this for the public.
Can you give us give an explanation for the public of the document that MOU between
Absolutely.
two
President Barton.
entities?
Absolutely. President Barton, trustees, I want to ask that Mr. Stacy Mops, our Director of Human Resources, join us for such insight and information as to the gist of the MOU. Mr. Mops.
Yes, so we have, this goes to our contract that was negotiated. We had a 2-year contract with the Richmond Education Association for that started 2023 through 2025 until the next bargaining window opens. And in that, there was provision for the HDHP, the high deductible health plan, to get 5 visits to a physician outside of the preventative care visits that everybody gets. And it was brought to our attention that having that provision there for our employees that enrolled in the HDHP, that they would, if they donated to their HSA, their health savings account, then that would become a taxable income then. And so that if they got audited, then they might receive penalties for that. So in order to fix that, we worked with REA, we talked to them, and the average doctor's physician's visit is $106. And so 5 visits came to $530. And this will be, so this kind of corrects that language in the contract since we didn't reopen. Of note, that's really important. If this would go for anybody that has a high deductible health plan, so not just the teachers.
Anyone that would elect who?
Yeah, correct. Anybody that has the HDHP and has a health savings account that then they would also receive that $530.
Are you guys contributing upfront
over the year?
It'll be
End of the year?
It'll be by the by January 31st. They'll have that deposit January 31st. And if somebody gets hired beyond, so we have open enrollment starting next week, and so it'd be if you elect the HDHP during that enrollment time, then you would have to open an account with UMB. That's who we do our HSA through, and then you would receive that. If we do hire somebody past the January 1st point, then they would also receive that as well if they sign up for the HDHP.
And I'm assuming none of this is retroactive.
Pardon me?
I'm assuming none of this is retroactive.
No, it'll start January 1st
Right.
with the new health plan.
Yep.
And the decision for this MOU and working through the language in it is agreed upon both by the Richmond Education Association and.
Correct. We worked with Mr. Lee and Mr. Scott Priest as well, and coming up with the language, and it was really bounced back and forth. I think it worked pretty well.
Thank you, sir.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 6-0. Next on our agenda are highlights and discussions.
Yeah, I've got a question. Just in thinking of AI, do we currently have any opportunities that we've provided for our teachers, perhaps in professional development, on how to handle AI in classrooms? So that's something I'd just like to know what we're doing with that.
I believe we have some areas of improvement. However, I think that your basic review, basic training that we over year in, year out has been administered. However, as Ms. Washington referenced, Ms. T referenced, with the ever evolving everything, we're definitely trying to stay ahead. I know that our technology team, Mr. Hazelbaker, members of our e-learning team, do a tremendous job a week of filling tidbit facts and safeguard information as to how to stay ahead of not only cybersecurity, but also some of the caveats that come with the curriculum instruction and how to identify the challenges with AI and some of the other routes occasionally students may take.
I know when we went to the ISBA in September, there were that was one of the topics that was
Well, unfortunately,
presented. Yeah.
it has come about very suddenly because it has hit school corporations a lot lately, and even in my profession, we're seeing more and more people who are making reports based upon AI, voice duplications, and other things that have led them, unfortunately, to become victimized. So, I can appreciate her concern with developing something more that we put the pieces in place to go ahead and prevent, these things.
I do think like you're saying, there's a lot of offshoots of it now, right? There's, plagiarism. I mean, that's kind of the basic, that there's so much stuff. But I would like to see, teaching our students how to actually utilize it and, effectively utilize it and what is out there, so they don't run into situations where, maybe they think they're researching, but it's not even, actual tangible information. So I think that's really important.
And to
So
extend that,
Sam, did you have something to say?
They're volunteering.
Well, Mr. Pritchett, our director, our superintendent secretary.
New guy,
Yeah.
But I was impressed that something new this year in the district is what's called Magic School. It's
Yes.
Magic AI, and so the e-learning team has tried to do just what you're talking about, is try to get ahead of that, because they're, like you're alluding to, there's not just there's a negative connotation to AI, but it's also a very powerful tool that we are seeing is going to benefit lots of professions in lots of areas. So our e-learning team has put that tool in the hands of teachers and has done professional development things with the teachers to show them how they can use AI to teach kids how to use it responsibly and to make better products and to do more research and things like for example, one of the things that was for me was in a social studies class, for example, students can dialogue with the AI. They were doing a research project on historical figures. And so they would ask the AI, the Magic School bot, questions, and it would give responses as that historical character. And I can remember, I think it was AJ that was talking about that. He said, so he fact checked it because they know, what the answer should have been. And so fact check. So just some simple things like that. It has hundreds of different options, but they're teaching teachers how to utilize just one thing at a time. It has what a teacher going to create a room, and while there may be 100 different tools they could use with AI, they can put in that room one specific tool that the students could use to accomplish the task in the classroom, so the kids learn how to use it not for evil, but for good purposes, kind of thing. So that is happening. Not every teacher, and they send us information about how many teachers are accessing and how many students are accessing it over the period of a month. It's not 100%, obviously. We're just gradually getting into that, but there's lots of room for growth and improvement, that's for sure. But I just did want you to know that on the teacher side, we are trying to teach the kids. We are trying to get ahead of that a little bit and show them it's not just a tool to cheat, but we are going to show you how to use it to accomplish, positive things as well.
Mr. Pritchard, which subject do you state that this is? I'm sorry. I have a bias history.
You got all kinds
Is
of
it social studies history?
social study, yeah.
But to that point, to Mr. Pritchard's point, to the
Sorry about
questions
that.
you all
Didn't mean to
posed,
shake it.
I think the challenge that we have before us is it's more goes back to what I've discussed in the past, quality material instruction and providing such instruction in such direction to our students, so as to how to identify primary, secondary source evidence, how to cite relative source, vet the information that's in front of you, and be that historical detective as you are trying to research and find out the true nature of things. So that's what we have in front of us. But as was alluded to, yes, we're trying to keep up.
Well, and I thought, looking into whether or not we need a policy too, I thought Ms. Washington had a very valid point. We do not want to be kind of left in the lurch with that. So.
And we're going to photocopy, make sure that you all get
Thank you.
a copy of this, as well as Attorney Pauls, our team, and we'll start to.
So another item for discussion. I am curious to know if the board would be interested in having a student representative. Currently, I love the idea of having someone from our high school here at the table with us in order to not only give them that opportunity to see what school governance would look like, community service, as well as to give us the opportunity to hear from them. So I know that's something that other school districts have done in the past. I was able to do that during my undergraduate work at Butler University. I was one of the student representatives, and it was an impactful opportunity for me. And I felt like I was able to give voice for the rest of the students. So yeah, I'm just kind of wanting to hear if that's something that other board members would be interested in looking into, and if so, how we would do that, how that would, like what that would look like, and how we would go about doing that. So
I'm trying to remember how it got dead ended, so to speak, in the past. In my time on the board, we've had this discussion twice before in regards to having that, but there were some other things, and I'm going to have to go back into my memory in the cobwebs to remember exactly. There were some little things in regards to how it was going to be selected, what their participation level was going to be, and some other things. And I think it's a great opportunity. However, it's something that really you just can't do it right offhand. They would have their say as to who it would be. And then we'd have to determine exactly what their role was going to be during the meetings as well.
I think we talked about it in the policy working group at some point. I know there was a rewrite to it or an update to allowing a student, and I don't remember exactly what it was. I think we skimmed it, but just were not getting the space to be able to have it. I would be all for it. I think, we'd have to talk through the parameters, like when and how and who is it, and is that person sort of, what is, not that you need to, go to college with a plan that this would help. I think lots of kids like would learn a lot from this experience, but I think it would be great for anyone, or even, you know,
We would have
there's
to
a
see.
couple students that cycle through a year.
The way that they did it at Butler, there was one representative from each grade level. So, you know, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, that was, but again, that was just one example. We did not have voting rights. But yet we were part of the discussion, part of the meeting. It was, like I said, a great experience for me, and I felt like everyone was very welcoming on the board. Anyway, just,
Yeah.
okay.
I think, Mr. Mops, do you remember the policy that?
There was a policy that had that.
Do you remember where it was?
No, but I can find it.
Okay. We definitely, because like I said, I don't remember exactly if there was an update to it. It seemed pretty broad. So
Like as
we
far as
were all
the
like,
parameters
we
could-
were like, you know, you'd have to pare it down depending on what we were doing. But
Well, again, it would go back to the student body over there and how they would choose to select the person. Also, in the past, one of the things was the length of time that they would do it. I mean, are they gonna, is that representative gonna be here for the duration of the whole year? Which in fact, that would cut out the opportunity for other students to be involved. You know, you reach through the student council, do you reach out through social studies or something like that? You know, those areas of study. And if so, again, what is the length of the time that they would be sitting here? And then what would their role be? Taking information, bringing information, reporting information back then. We never really got that far in working it out.
Michael, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, personally, I would definitely recommend that we do this. It brings a sense of belonging to your community, but it also brings a belonging to understanding, you know, where you want to go. I think we definitely need to set parameters though, for sure, on how they can do it. I would do more of a time frame of every quarter, so you get 4 people every quarter. You do every quarter so that someone from the same class and or 9th, 10th grade or 11th grade or 4th grade, however we do it, but you get more people involved, I think, by doing it every quarter. So I definitely I agree with you guys. I would definitely want to do that, set some parameters, but I would do it every quarter, in my opinion.
What are your thoughts?
I'm all for student involvement. I'm just wondering, my thoughts go to, well, first I want to read about other school corporations that have done it so I can understand more of the process. But also I'm just thinking of a high schooler and many of the things, not that there's not learning of the process, but giving feedback on, you know, a RFIT test or, you know, so I'm thinking more like with the work sessions when we are discussing the high school and especially renovations or things. I'm not sure. I mean, that's kind of where my thought is going. Then I also think about the representatives from the high school, but not all the other schools. And then do we, you know, I don't know. I think I just need to research it more so I can understand it better. I mean, I think student involvement is wonderful. I just would want to make sure that if they were part of this, that, I mean, I don't know what they could speak on, for example, at tonight's meeting or in general, most meetings that, you know, the things that come across what we're looking at may not be pertinent or relevant to
So it may
high
even
schoolers. So
be,
that's just where I'm.
if there's something on the agenda that pertains to
Yes.
what they would, you know, something that we'd be eliciting feedback
Sure.
from, then they would be invited.
Mhm.
That would be, okay.
I was thinking more like like the internship realm
Mhm.
of it,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
you know, learning
Uh,
how we do
With that.
things. I mean, I think it helps educate
Yes.
Yeah.
what the board actually does.
Sam's coming on.
I came up again. I hope it's okay.
Yes.
We got,
So
could you
Superintendent Sam Pritchard?
I mean,
Mr.
Miss
Cross.
Pickering is segueing into a lot of things. So we are involved in. I'm involved. We as a district are involved in conversations about internships and the new graduation requirements and how that can benefit kids. And so we have started having conversations in the district because
as an employer, not just as an educational institution, but as an employer, what can we do? Because there's a working group of community businesses and things who are talking about internships and how you set structure and parameters for kids to join the workforce, either as paid or unpaid interns, to meet the new graduation.
And join the community too.
Yes,
I mean, this
yes.
is kind of.
So we will have, as a school corporation, we will have some guidelines and terms like you're talking about and expectations for those interns. But then you, as an entity, if that's what you want to do, the kind of discussion you're having, we would blend those two things together to allow kids to be a part of it, and they get credit toward graduation for being an intern with the school board or on the grounds team or with the finance, with our business office, or some of those kind of places where we can have kids be a part. So I was kind of excited to hear you guys talking about that. That's great, because we were looking for other places that we can have kids access.
Do we know of any other school corporations that are doing this?
Well, we were all at the table together at one point. As far as the school boards, no,
No.
I don't know of any. No,
I do.
Ron, jump in.
Hey, let me say wrong.
As part of the Wayne County allotment of ARPA monies and the help initiative, they have identified a student engagement outreach program that would involve all 5 of the public county schools, donating $10,000 each of edit monies from Consolidated Edit, which would be the EDC, and Wayne County Edit, for students to engage in community outreach projects. Now, this can link to a potential credit concept. It could link to private business internships. They get a little complex because unless they're for credit, they need to be compensated under Fair Labor Standards. But and again, I'm glad Sam spoke up, but I was going to say that Aaron correctly noted there needs to be some sense of representation and authority by representation for these folks. But I think it's an absolute necessity that the faculty and teachers be highly involved in the development of the program for it to have meaningful integrity and substance. But there's potentially $20,000 out there for each school corporation.
See, here's a final comment
Okay.
that I would have in regards to that, and that is, if in fact this was going to be done based upon a credit basis, there again, if we were going to have one representative from each of the 4 grade levels from high school for 8 weeks at a time for a school year or so, that's 16 students. 16 students that get served and get that extra credit. Okay, how they're selected would be crucial, as opposed to somebody else who is even more interested in the role of public service, from a board level, who may not be selected. They miss out. That other student who got selected gets a credit, but their heart may not be into it. The one who doesn't get selected is the one who would like to be here and see how public service is meted out, on a weekly basis. The decisions, how they come to. You even learn Robert's Rules of Order in here and all these things. So again, this goes back to some of the things that we discussed a long time ago, is the selection process, the meaningful application of it, and how what is learned here goes back over there to the rest of the student body, how it's reported. So those are just some of the hangups or the concerns that I would have. I think it's very worthwhile, but if we were to do that, me personally, there's a lot of steps that have to be taken, and I would not see it happening before the beginning of the 25-26 school year.
John, you haven't heard from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 issues. I think the intern program's separate than from a board seat. I think both are valid, but I don't see, and I would keep it simple. I would say you'd have the student body president. Their term is for the term on the board, and I don't know if you swear them in, Ron, or they take some sort of oath, but that they have a seat at the table for that entire school year.
Well, or you could have them and or their designee, because you're trying to build.
Their designee.
You're trying to build team building.
There is some confidentiality, so I don't know how you handle those things. But I think to have a sorting system and a desire and switch every quarter, all not bad ideas. But I know how this board functions and how slowly we move. And I would just student body
Michael doesn't
president.
know that yet.
Yeah.
So
See,
that's
doubt
why
he gets to
he's
learn
like
that.
every quarter, it's like we
And
they
so
didn't know
just,
it.
Let me go though.
I like the KISS principle, and so I would keep things as streamlined and as easy as possible. And I think it's a good idea. I think the more we just president or designee, I think that's more than would be fair, and I would be for the term of the year. And whether they get a stipend or not, we can talk those things out. But you have some presidents that would be at every meeting. And some years, the president or the person would probably not show up half the time. It just would be, and that would be fine by me. I mean, they would look at the agenda.
My comments on student engagement were intended to supplement
Yeah.
Sam's comments. There
Yes.
are going to be resources. I agree, it's a totally separate program than what Nicole was originally envisioning.
And I think that's worthy of pursuing on its own merit. But as far as the board seat, I think, it'd be somewhat like the redevelopment commission where we have a seat there. We don't get a vote, but we have a seat at the table.
We're trying to get you a vote.
Huh?
Every year, every session, we're trying to get you a vote.
So
All right.
that would be my 2 cents.
Well, I appreciate the dialogue. It sounds like there's interest in pursuing what it could look like. So, is that a Sam job then, or?
We'll definitely,
Okay.
To be incorporated, yeah.
Okay. No, I would just love to see what options you guys could put before us, and then we could kind of flesh it out and see what we can come up with.
And to your point, there are schools and corporations around the state and around the country that delve into such ideals. There also was a great article and research about 2 or 3 semesters ago. And we'll go back and look at. We'll present our findings, share with you all with when we come up with.
Thank you.
Since we are talking about policy, somewhat, I'd like for us to discuss how we work through our policy. So just to recap, I guess, currently how we work through our current policy, and we're working through quite a few policy changes. We have working groups. I'm sorry, that's not what I want to say. We have work sessions once a month. We have work sessions. We have work sessions twice a month. One time a month that we are focusing on policy. So approximately an hour, we are talking through policy and policy changes. In the past, we have had working groups where 2 board members met with Dr. Wright and Mr. Mops and worked through policy and brought them back to the board. So I guess our conversation, do we want to continue the path that we are working on now? A different version that I would like to propose that would make it more transparent and more people involved would be, and give us more time. And we can have more meetings because we are moving slowly through these policies and we do need to kind of speed up, I think, working through these, would be to have 2 board representatives who are kind of focused on it, but it would be in a public meeting, so it would be advertised. Of course, we'd have Dr. Wright and anyone else, Mr. Mops, and then any other board members who want to come could also, work through those policies. And then from there, of course, they eventually come to the regular board meeting, which we're having now, where we can have first reading, second reading, 100th reading, or whatever, where everyone can kind of talk through also. But kind of getting the ball rolling on the initial policy would be what we need to have a discussion on. Do we want to go back to working groups that we had? Do we want to continue with what we're doing now with work sessions? Or do we want to modify that to be able to work through policy quicker?
And President Barton, if I
Yes.
just may ask a point of clarification.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, this would be and serve as a superintendent's working group that would be or
I think
would it be a
I think we've lost that distinction between superintendent created committees and board created committees with the last legislature. We were butting heads with the PAC, who disagreed with the literal reading of the statute, the Public Access Council, I'm sorry, and took the position that any committee, regardless of whether it was created by the superintendent or by a board, that dealt with official business and was going to be almost like the instrumentality analysis we used to have under Public Law 217. so the last session said any committee that has one board member that is strictly advisory, regardless of who appoints that board member, is not subject to the open door law if its function is to gather information, report back, and for anticipation of board action. Two or more, you kind of cross that threshold, and you've created an open door situation, which I think we've had a few emails in the last couple of weeks, but I think Kristen and I think with the full board, I exchanged some concepts that you had talked about what you just discussed, and I think that was my reading. That's the appropriate way to do it if you want to have two, if you will, focus board members or sitting board members, and the rest of the board free to come in and out as interest or time allows.
In the public.
Recognizing it's a public meeting, it'll be noticed, and I'd suggested maybe doing a blanket notice if you can have a tentative time that works for the two core members. And that way you don't have to notice every one. If you have to cancel one, that's no big deal. Canceling, as Cindy can tell you, is a lot easier than advertising. And then see where you're going and let it evolve. I mean, I don't want you to get too rigid in the structure, because the whole idea is to kind of move them along, because we've kind of hit that snag point, it seems.
So would these be special, they'd be considered special meetings then?
Well, it depends. They're not special if you've advertised them in advance, but
Okay.
I mean, your limited agenda meetings, I think, is what you're wanting them to be.
Okay.
And like I indicated in my email to you, the extent to which you would entertain public comment would be somewhat discretionary, but I think I would go with the flow, so to speak. You're going to have certain issues like electronic communication devices that might generate a lot of interest, and others that, probably put people to sleep.
So is it something that we could classify as that working session then? Is that what?
Yeah, basically a work session type of meeting. But the point being is, in the eyes of the law, it's a public meeting.
Yeah.
With two board members.
How does the rest of the board feel about, your thoughts for working through policy?
I also ask one
Oh,
last
yes.
point of clarification, because with it being a working session, that's then when any board member can attend at any time, because it's a public meeting that's been
And members of the public.
and also attend. Yeah. So
And memoranda, minutes, not, they don't need to be transcripts, just memoranda, meetings gap, which I assume you would. And then somewhat like the agenda committee is, there's a report back to the full board before the meeting. Periodic reports, whatever the committee feels, communication is obviously the objective of the committee, and whatever needs to happen to keep the full board informed is what I would expect the committee would evolve toward.
And then if the two school board members who are assigned to this committee and others attend, school board members attend, can they can have equal input, or is it considered public commentary, or is it just?
No, I think they would be considered as still board members.
Okay.
They're in attendance. It's a public meeting. The chair is very powerful, so I guess the extent of their involvement would be up to the chair.
Sorry, just
So in short, if I understand, as we have done previously, given the fact that the public assets counselor has, and there's new language in around it, basically what we've done in the past, now just simply becomes a work session that allows for the designated members the two designated members to be at the forefront, but any member at any time can attend, chime in, and be participatory, just as.
So the last time we had a major policy overhaul was, I'm guessing, 6 years ago. ISBA went through our entire policy, I guess all our policies, and then reported back. And then what we did as a board is 2 board members were assigned to subject groups. So I forget I think there's 8 or 10, but 1,000 and 2,000s were 2 people through that. And so those 2 members then would go through those policies, would look at the ISBA suggestions, and then kind of formulate or report back the policies that then would go for the entire board. Dixie Robinson was president at the time. She really spearheaded and drove that process. I think administration was more than his advisory role to the board. That was entirely board driven, and while administrative was a partner and had input, we've really gone to administrative controlling policy, and I really don't think that's the right role. And so I don't know if this is the right method or not. I'm willing to try whatever. But I think it's important to know that policy is board work. Administration follows policy through administrative guidelines. We don't involve ourselves in administrative guidelines. We involve ourselves in policy. And so I think it's real important that while administrators is a partner and their feedback is crucial to good policy, policy needs to come from the board, by the board. And so if this can do that, I think that's willing. But I think part of the problem is we keep running into who's our policy people now. Neola says this, and then administration says this, and then we don't know exactly if it's following the law. We think it is. I mean, I think it mostly is, but sometimes we often have questions. Is this the law, or is this Neola boilerplate, or what? And we're just kind of chasing our tail. Or I think if the board took the lead and says, and I'm comfortable with two. I mean, I don't have to look at every policy, but I want board eyes on every policy. So if Kristen and Nicole take the personnel policies, that's fine. I mean, they will point out things that come to their concerns. But I don't personally need to review every policy. I need to approve it. But I think somehow we've got to get a better balance of policies, board work, and whatever that looks like. I'm fine. I don't think we're there yet. So
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, Aaron and I both talked about it. We were the two on the policy committee, and I thought we were working through it, right? I mean, I know we were, and just say because, like you said, like not all of us need to be like at that first level. So I think like we would sit there with Mr. Mops, and Dr. Wright, and Spolster, and some things were like, nope, strike that, strike that. And then when we brought it to the board, I know we could be like, oh, hey, like we, this is what we edited, or Mr. Mops would stand up and just so the rest of the board could see. It takes out a lot of, now there are those bigger policies that really need to go through. I'm kind of setting those aside for the moment because, like the cell phone policy. So whether it's, we split up the groups. So and we still have we have the open meetings. Everyone can come, but it's like, let's say like you and I, like it's our group of policies we're sort of taking the lead on, then everyone can come. I just think now how we're doing it, I know I feel like I have to like just like, yes, you want to be involved, but now we have too many cooks in the kitchen for just that space of like read through, right? Like, and where do we need to go with this policy versus like, hey, this is kind of how we think the board wants to go with it. So,
So when you went through this with Dixie as president, so those two people that had a section, they would just the two of them would meet, not in any sort of
I don't know
ODL compliant format. It was just okay. Is that even an option nowadays? To have, say, John and I are working through a set and we just get together whenever it's convenient for us and go through. Is that even an option?
It's difficult, I would say.
But practicality has to hold. I mean, for the PAT counselor to say you can't. I mean, either want good policy work or you don't. And if you want good policy work, then it has to be done in a certain. I mean, well, the approach to have open meetings is fine. I don't have a problem with that, but it's just so inefficient. How do you get through all the policies in a reasonable manner? I mean, because I think our probably 90% of the policies need very little rework, maybe 80%, 80 to 90%, I would say. It's that 10 to 20% that you really are going to have to spend time on, but you still have to go through every policy. I mean, yes, we charge administration to do that, but we're the ones that vote on them. We're the ones that approve them. Policy is board work. We need to have if we're going to have ownership of those policies, then they have to come from the board. Otherwise, they're administrative guidelines.
I'm wondering if Stacy, Mr. Mops would be willing to give your opinion because you are HR and you have to, I mean, you have been the one kind of guiding us. You are the one who gets the updates from Neola and have insight into that. And you have worked through the working groups and work sessions and now a new idea. I mean, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I kind of agree with John.
Mhm.
I think it is the board's, and it's your job.
Mhm.
And then if you feel like you need input or need guidance or need opinion from the administration, then I think we're here to help you in any way that you see that we need you. But
Would
yeah,
you say that's the way it's been done so far?
um,
I mean, I don't think any one of the board members has organized and been like, I'm the one who's going to make sure we look at each policy because you kind of are the holder of that. I mean, unless one of the board members wants to take over, like making sure we
I'll
go
train
over
them.
each. I don't want to be training, but that's the part I'm
Right.
trying to understand. I mean, did you, Aaron and Kim, did you guys feel like when you met that you were driving the policy, or did you not feel that way?
I think it was equal.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
like,
think
yeah,
it was equal.
yeah,
He-
Pops would
he-
bring some, and
Yes.
there's a couple, like,
Mhm.
maybe we need to look at this.
We would bring up some, but he was spot on with having it prepared for us as to we're going to look over these 5 or 6 policies during this. We have the bullet point up there. This may need to be changed. It's the only correction, and maybe it's a little bit of the outdated verbiage, and we're going to change that. As opposed to now this one we're going to need to look at because this section no longer, is basically representative of the corporation. We need to do that again. He had it prepared. It made coming in very fun because we looked, we discussed it, thinking, okay, that's good. Now we've got the understanding. So
Is
And I
that
do
the
think we
part,
need that.
John, that you feel like we need to take over as a board?
Well,
I'm
when
trying
we're-
to understand
When we were
that.
at ISBA, the administrative assistant would get the updates. I mean, she handled the policy, that position. It wasn't, it only became HR when Mrs. Bolzer was HR and pushed us to Neola.
Mhm.
That's when it fell in.
But I think in all fairness, I think the ISBA, actually, we were a beta school corporation for that process.
Mhm.
They volunteered that. We didn't pay for that.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much, I'd say, over about a full school year,
Yes.
intense process. And then somehow we got it done. The details of how it got done, I don't even care about if they apply with the open door law. It got done. And it got done with the board having a sense of ownership, I thought.
Yes. I would
But
agree.
it got put on the shelf.
I think
those updates are available, and any of you can see those updates anytime.
But that's so and then that's when we had the policy where we reviewed 2 to 3 policies every meeting because that we didn't want to get behind again, and then we kind of got away from that. But yeah, and then what Ms. Claypool would do in that role is she would say, okay, we've gotten this update, in July. There's usually a bunch, and we would make the adjustments. And it seemed like for a couple of years we kind of were rolling pretty good with that system. And then I know there were frustrations with the policy with Mrs. Bolzer, and we went to Neola, and it just seemed like, I still have problems with how they were approved and how that whole process happened. But I think ownership's the key. If you want us to own the policies, then we have to be involved in the policies. What that looks like, and I'm sure you'd love to get it off your plate. Is it advisory? Perfect. I'm the one. Why does it fall to HR? I don't know.
Well, and
You have plenty of other things to do, I'm guessing.
if I may be able to add to the understanding, because Mr. Weber is absolutely correct, and I know he's mentioned it several times, that the role of the board is to hire the superintendent, establish policy, and monitor budgetary and fiscal matters. To Mr. Weber's point, and Mr. Mobbs, I'll ask that we find the policy number, but Mr. Weber's spot on in that. I believe we have policy. It's been a while since I've looked at that particular policy in particular, but we do have policy that states that as a school administration, as a school entity, we would partner with board members, but ideally the board members arrive at the conclusive nature of the policy with the input, with the suggestions, recommendations that we may have as the professionals in the field. That's what.
So I guess my confusion is through the working groups and the work sessions, do you feel like we have not been a partner? Because I had felt like we have been a partner.
Well, I
But
think
is that-
Dr. Wright just said it.
Right.
He wants more input on policy, which might be right,
Mhm.
but that's not been the past. It's only the current administration that wants a bigger role in policy. So whether we as a board accept that or not, that's up to us.
Well, I feel what I liked about our working group is, like I said, it was not keeping administration, you guys out. I can't talk today, but it was that first line of attack on getting eyes on the policy. So it's like we can still do both, right? Like, yes, Mr. Musgrove wants to get it off his plate, but it was very helpful to have someone there. Like, he would try to group some together for us to
Kind of
bring
the organization of it.
right. That is to me, that's the hardest part.
Yes.
Like, if we didn't have him sort of doing that, and it was just us, like,
I think that
we're
was
never gonna get it done.
Clay
So
filled that role.
yeah, so
prior
whoever
to Mr.
has to do it.
Yeah, I mean, someone has to
Yeah.
organize and keep
Yeah.
things
But
straight.
I see that not as blocking you out. I just see that as like getting our eyes, like, here's 5 policies. You know, you were there on most of those, and just trying to figure it out. And then when you bring it to first reading,
That's when
that's when you have it. But right now we just bring it to first reading, and I feel like we waste so much
Because
time.
all of us. So
Right.
if we go back to kind of, you were saying that worked, and my method is just kind of making your method public. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
I'm totally.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
really,
With that, I mean, is everyone
Yeah,
okay with
I'm-
that?
Keeping it simple.
Yeah.
But we still do need that point person.
Yes. And so do we want that to continue? Stacy doesn't want it.
That,
I mean, that would be a
what you
huge
want me
job.
to do. Whatever you assign me to do, I will just do it.
I'm comfortable with Stacy continuing. I feel like he's the one who was
He's
going
invested a lot of time in policy, so.
Yes, he already
Well, and
has.
it is very helpful.
He
Mr.
implements
Ross. Yeah.
policy.
It's helpful because there are times we had to bring up scenarios about like when this
Yes.
and that's where
And that
we're
was
going back
helpful.
to, and Mr. Webb is absolutely right. I think that one of the things that you all heard me state time and again is moving policy into practice. And I was just quoting, and again, I'm not sure what that policy Mr. Moss is trying to put his finger on. I'm not sure exactly the language and the legalese within that policy, but it does call for us as the practitioners in the field to provide you all the insight. But ideally, it's the board's responsibility to arrive at the conclusions.
I would think that, I just think that policy needs tweaked now, because I don't believe that is correct. I mean, I think we're partners, but I mean, that's circular logic. I mean, you tell us what to say, so we say it. I mean, at some point, like the cell phone policy we've talked about, I mean, there is some differentiation between what the board wanted and what administration wanted.
Mhm.
Well, the board wins out in that because it's our policy. Your role is to follow the board policy and implement it through administrative guidelines.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate your input. We want your input. We need your input,
Yes, sir.
but it's our decision.
Absolutely. And I echo that, for example, of what we heard in public commentary this evening. If it weren't for our classroom practitioner in the class teacher sharing such experiences they've had in the classroom, we wouldn't necessarily have that intel and that insight from those, as well as even from our administrative team. And ideally, to Mr. Weber's point, we simply would provide insight, provide suggestions, recommendations, but ultimately, as has always been the case, will be the case, is the board's final decision.
Great. So it sounds like we're in agreement that they will kind of change the layout of, and there'll be open work sessions, and we will and so now I think we need to talk. I believe our policy says, do you assign the people, or I'm not sure, or do
Well,
we
no,
discuss? Or
No, it's a
how
work
does
session.
No.
It's just the work session. And that's what I think Attorney
Oh,
Cross
okay.
alluded to. This is
So
just a work session.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if there are then 2 board members who would say, hey, we will be at every meeting for sure, and the rest of us will, try to be it, but 2 people who would then figure out dates with Mr. Mops and Dr. Wright And once those dates are established, the monthly dates, and I don't know, maybe two times a
Are
month.
the
I'm
two
not
of
sure.
you guys still wanting to do that? I mean,
Should let them have time to think about it.
I think it's gonna.
No, I would say yes. I think I like opening it up so that, you know, if Aaron has to go do something or I can't be there, that
Yeah.
we're just communicating to know that there are always two board members.
I think you got to remember you're an elected school board. And with that comes your skill sets that you bring from your own backgrounds. And that's what the whole concept of elected school boards is intended to embody. I totally agree with John's concept that it is the board's province. That doesn't mean the board exercises that province with a blind eye toward the fact that these policies have to work in the real world, which is the classroom in large part. In most of them.
I think this format also welcomes another conversation we had, which is allows for student voice to be brought to the table as well as classroom educators, depending upon the policy, depending upon the topic.
So Aaron, did I hear yes?
You didn't hear anything.
Okay, I was hoping I did. I was like, okay, are you interested?
I
in
am
being a
very
board
much
person?
interested, but I was not prepared to make a decision because I did not know we were having this discussion.
Okay, that's fine. So you can think about that and once,
But I really enjoyed being a part of it. I just,
okay.
But I do think, and maybe we decide how we split it up or if we're doing it by sections. I know we did try to say the like policies, like if there's one for staff and one for like, there's some that reference each other to try to keep those together, but.
I'm just feeling like if we have a point person, then they can work out dates with Stacy and we can firm up these dates and that person will make sure they're at every meeting and the rest of us will fill in.
Yeah,
But
I
so
can
we
be
can-
that.
Will you be that
I
person?
can be that.
Okay,
and I am interested in continuing. I
Yeah.
just,
Okay.
this just caught me off guard.
sorry. Okay, so great. So you two will get with Mr. Mops and Dr. Wright and figure out and then send the dates to all and we'll go from there. Okay, great. Are there any other items or any other highlights or discussions?
I did want to thank the public members who were part of the survey that closed on the 8th, the strategic planning process that we're in the middle of. I just very much appreciate those who took the time to take that survey. And it's a huge undertaking for us. So I think as a board, we really appreciate getting all of that input. So do we know number wise, like, have we heard from Mr. Horton?
I was actually with Mr. Horton today. He did not reference that.
Okay.
He's still compiling it. It'll take a little time, just for respect.
No, I'm just appreciative of the work that's going on the community's part in order to give us their input on that.
I know that goal of his is to have as much data from such a survey for next Tuesday's second strategic planning session.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you.
Any other discussion highlights? Okay, preview of upcoming meetings and events. Immediately following the adjournment of this meeting, school board members will be headed to the ISBA Fall District meeting tonight in Hagerstown. Also upcoming events, the RHS Red Devil Player production, Junie B. Jones, is Friday. This Friday at 7 p.m. at McGuire Hall. So that looks to be fun. I've seen lots of advertisement for that. The RCS Spell Bowl is this coming Monday at Civic Hall at 5:30. The RCS Steel Percussion Concert is next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Our next school board work session and business meeting will be Monday, the 25th at 2024. We'll begin at 5:30 in the old boardroom for the work session and we'll follow with the business meeting at 5:30 or 6:30 here in this room. Adjournment bell ringer.
Tonight's bell ring, I'd just like to, again, on behalf of the board as well as our corporation, continue to pay homage to our veterans. This past Monday, we, there at Test Intermediate School, was visited by our state Senator Ross, who spoke with our 5th and 6th grade students throughout the corporation. I know there were several celebrations that were carried out. I know our band performed this past Saturday. We definitely appreciate those veterans who continue to extend sacrifice for our country's freedom and all that we stand for. And so it was a great experience, and the students asked positive questions in and around civics and social studies.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.